Hi, I'm Jack and welcome back to Real Opinions. Today I'm going to be reviewing the series Stranger Things, the latest Netflix original series that they just put out. The basic premise of it is that it's a small American town in the 80s, kind of your classic Americana town, and one boy, after going home from a night of playing Dungeons & Dragons with his friend, disappears. The boy's family gets involved in trying to find him, his friends start trying to get involved to find him, the police sheriff tries to find him, and it's all kind of leading back to this one source, which is the dodgy-looking government facility just out of town. So already just by the description, without even seeing anything from the start, you can tell that it's already basing stuff off of E.T., classic Spielberg, Poltergeist, Super 8 sort of, which came out recently, which was of itself kind of harkening back to these times. I talked a while ago about how these kind of retro horrors are coming back, so there's kind of the work of Adam Wingard, there was It Follows, that small film Bastard, and other things like that, so there's definitely a retro horror thing coming back. So it wasn't just focusing on the fact that it could be retro for A, style, and also B, for being cheap. It's very much focusing on the actual film quality of these series. I'd say that the series is definitely like a kind of cultural hot pot of stuff, so there's lots of different references to lots of different films, and so there's references to, as I said, like Spielberg films, all of them, Poltergeist, Goonies, there's also The Thing, Evil Dead is referenced, kind of just all the kind of classic films that identify with that era, and it's just taking all of those and turning it in on itself, and it's not dissecting them in any way, it's just kind of referencing them, and it's so far to the point that it's homage bordering on just straight up copying for a lot of the time, which kind of puts it down because it is very good with what it does. It's a very good series. I really did enjoy it. It's only 8 episodes, it's more than worth your time, but I just want to go into a few of the points which was really great, and a couple things where it kind of didn't get it as great. All the characters were really great. They were tropes, definitely they were tropes, but that's just because they're playing on all the references, but they did enough with them so that they weren't just the same person that you've seen 100 times before, and they added I think it helped that the dialogue was very good, and it helped that it made them feel realistic within these kind of roles that they've already been established for them in hundreds of films that have come before it, so they managed to fit into them well, and they managed to make them realistic in their own way, which I did definitely like. This is definitely helped by the fact that the acting is really great, both in the adults and in the kids. They'll probably read this in every single review because it is amazing how great the child performances are. For performances, they are pretty good. For child performances, they are excellent. So that was really great to see, because especially that is in the essence of Spielberg, in that they are following children, and to do that you need believable children, and it's not just like 40-year-olds that are writing how children should think, like a Disney Channel show. Like, you kind of want something that feels like the borderline between like the kids themselves are just acting it out themselves, and no, they definitely did a really great job at being realistic but at the same time getting the right amount of drama in, and it didn't feel like they were overreacting at any point or underreacting because they just couldn't act well or anything like that. They did the just right amount. Well, following from that, as I said, with the dialogue, the script is actually pretty great. The script actually I thought was surprisingly great, actually, because it's a series. I didn't realise that it had been renewed for a second one beforehand, so I was almost expecting it to be like a kind of complete package, and so I was really quite enjoying it when stuff that was brought up for very briefly in earlier episodes was used again later, and it kind of just, it wasn't like look how clever we are, it's just a kind of thing where it's already been established for you, and it's not something that's been established very clearly, it's just something that's just established to make people sound more human, and so I really enjoyed that, and they managed to turn the concept of, mentioned earlier that the kid was playing Dungeons & Dragons, and that kind of becomes, when you first see it, you just think, instantly I just thought of that scene in E.T. at the beginning, and I thought, okay, so it's just a reference and they're going to move on, but actually it became kind of a structure for the entire show, which actually really helped out in some of these kind of big sci-fi ideas can get a bit lost in themselves, and it really helped to kind of ground it, and especially kind of provided a framework so that you could tell that the kids were understanding it as well, which I definitely appreciated, because sometimes in these overcomplicated sci-fi stuff you wonder how, not if you're, like, I mean, you can kind of follow it because you're seeing everything, but sometimes you wonder how the kids follow it as well, and it was really great that they kind of provided not only like this fun backstory for them, but also the fact that it provided them with a bit with the ability to understand, to comprehend those kind of topics. Right, the slight faults that I think that it had, I think that these are just going to be petty points, because honestly I do think that it's a really enjoyable series and I would definitely recommend it, but these are just petty points that I wanted to bring up. The score overall is really quite great. It's this kind of dark synthy kind of building tension score, which works great for a lot of the scenes. However, occasionally when it wants to do the kind of softer, warmer, emotional scenes, it kind of falls short a bit, and I wouldn't hold it to this as much if it wasn't the fact that of the stuff that this show is referencing. And so you get with all these kind of the classic films is that sure, they have all the dramatic moments and they have the big dramatic build-ups, but at the same time they have the big emotional moments as well, even though they're small moments for the characters, but they become big by the music and by the way that they're shot and everything like that. And the score, the theme that they kept with the score was very good for the drama and the mystery, and the tension wasn't so good for the small emotional parts. And the other small issue was the cinematography, which a lot of people could argue with me for this, in that I felt like the lighting was all great, the shots themselves pretty much great all the way through. It's just that, and I suspect this just comes from the Netflix standard, in that every single show for Netflix, they seem to have it for red cameras, and red cameras are very much known for having this kind of flat, perfectly clean style, which is great for, say, House of Cards or Orange is the New Black, like modern shows that are focusing on modern issues, and they're cut in these kind of grayscale places and all that. But this was a colourful, dark, and kind of retro style show, and so I kind of wanted something with a bit more I wanted the look to have a bit more texture to it, or maybe just a bit more grittier. I mean, they kind of fake it a bit in the title sequence, which I noticed. They kind of add a film grain to it and all that, which instantly goes by the time that you see the show, which, like, it's a bit over the top in the title sequence, but it's kind of, I wanted a bit more. It kind of took me a tiny bit out of it for the show, and again, for the 95% of viewers, that's not going to bother them at all. I'm just being really pedantic because I can, but yeah, it's just a slight thing that I would have appreciated them. Obviously, film is mostly out of the question because you don't have the budget for those these days, but it's just, it had such a clean look to it that it kind of went against the period look that they were going for. And my last little complaint, again, comes with a compliment on top of it, but the compliment being that all the side characters are really quite great. They have such a small part, but at the same time they manage to make them realistic, and again, they don't break away entirely from the tropes, but they build upon them so that they're not just a trope. And so there's like the two cops that are kind of in the middle ground between ineptitude and I'm good at my job, I just don't care that much. And the problem that I have with this one, though, there's one side character that gets sidelined pretty early on in the show. The way that they handle her is very slapdash. She is relevant throughout the show, but it kind of feels like they definitely set up like a hierarchy, very noticeably with her character, where it's like, these other characters are much more important, so you can just kind of briefly mention her and then other characters will react, but you don't get the sense of it because they haven't given any time to actually focus on that character at all, or actually, so they say to you how important this side character is to some of the main characters, but they never actually show it, and they never actually give you a sense of it, and you don't actually care for that person at all, and again, that's just one character. The rest of the side characters are pretty good. Maybe they kind of do it again with one of the villainous characters later on in the series, but overall handled characters very well. As a whole, I think it's my favourite Netflix original show now. And yeah, because it is dark and gritty, kind of like the Daredevil stuff that everyone talks about, but at the same time it has a bit more heart, and it has a comedy that doesn't feel entirely forced like some of the Netflix shows. Like, it's just got a very natural comedy to it, which I definitely appreciate more. Yeah, I'd give it a 8 out of 10? 8 out of 10. Really great show, I definitely recommend it.